Okay, let's make a roast. Now, as I go along, I'll share with you more about why I use the things I use, but for right now, I'm just going to run through a quick inventory of the things you'll need to follow along with the video. So first, you'll need a nice stainless steel pan and a fat with a higher smoke point, so don't try to use olive oil or anything like that. I'm not currently using coconut oil, but I have in the past, so you could use coconut oil as well if you don't have any ghee around. Then we can kind of go through this real quick. So a good heavy-duty set of tongs is good. Spatula, I like a silicone spatula, which again, I'll go through why I use all of these things that I use as we get going here, but a wooden spoon, some paper towels, and a surface. I like using a plate for what I'm about to use this for, and you can use a cutting board if you'd want to, whatever, some flat, sturdy surface. You'll need a roast, of course. I'm going to be using a little over 3-pound arm roast, and it is from a really great meat producer we have here. It's awesome if you can start with a good quality of meat. This is how I get away with the next two things I'm going to tell you about. I use salt and pepper, and that is it to season this meat because we really like the flavor of this meat. Now, of course, if you want something more flavorful, you can definitely add whatever it is that you like on beef, and that's great. Like I said, we love the flavor of the meat that we get from this local producer, so we like to just keep it clean. Salt and pepper is great. You will also need red wine of some sort to deglaze our pan. I happen to be using vermouth. It works great, it tastes great, so whatever you like to deglaze a pan with. And actually, I guess you wouldn't even really need wine. You could use a stock. If you don't have wine on hand, you could use a vegetable stock or a chicken stock or something like that. All right, and of course, your Instant Pot. We will be using the trivet inside the Instant Pot to hold the roast up out of the liquid, so you need to have that on hand. If you happen to be using various seals, you'll want to have your meat seal in. If you just have one seal, never mind. Pretend I didn't say that. All right, so those are the things that you will need as we go along. Let me explain to you what we've got going on here. You will probably see videos about doing roast that say that you can sear your roast in the Instant Pot and not dirty another pan. Absolutely. If you have a small enough roast that you can move it around and get all of its sides all nice and seared inside the Instant Pot, go for it. That is not a bad thing. It does work. However, I tend to use roasts that are too big to do that with, and it's just not feasible. So I think that is it, and we will get started. While our fat is in our pan getting nice and hot, and I'm talking crazy hot, I put this on medium high. I want it really hot. I want that sizzle when the meat hits the pan. You'll see that here in a second, but I'm going to show you how I prepare the meat to get it ready to get a really good sear. So like I said, I've got an arm roast here that's just a little over 3 pounds. And you see now, I need a nice firm surface here. I have the paper towel to soak up all of the liquid on the other side, and now I'm going to pat this side. I give it a really nice little squeeze to get the liquid off of this side. This is all about the sear, baby, all about the sear. So we get it all nice and dry on this side, and now this is when we do our seasoning with salt and pepper. I like to grind the pepper fresh right on there, get it really, and you're going to think you're over seasoning. I mean, you really just want to pack it on because it will be fantastic if you get plenty of it on there. And then we do some salt, whatever salt you like. We actually have a blend that we use, so this is kind of a weird little container with some notes on it. But anyway, and again, it's gonna look like too much to you when you're doing it. It's gonna just look coated, but trust me, it comes out great. So once you get it on there, you wanna pat it in because what you're going to do next is flip it over onto the pan. All right, now that is good and hot. It's just starting to smoke. I love that. That is a good hot pan, and you will hear that nice sizzle when we get it in here. Yeah, baby, that's what we want to hear. And now this is ready to be seasoned on this side. So same thing all over again. Just get it really good on there. And like I said, it looks like a lot, but once it cooks, it's just perfect. Get all that peppery and salty goodness all over there. And the searing process takes a while. So once I get this going here, once I get all of the salt and pepper on it and get it kind of patted in, I am going to stop the video and come back when it is magically seared on the other side, because I like to get a really, really good sear before putting it into the Instant Pot. It has been searing for about 8 minutes. Starting at about 4 minutes, I kind of started picking it up. You probably see that it's smaller and it's differently positioned in the pan slightly. It's because every now and then I pick it up and look at it. Now this arm roast, unlike a chuck roast or some of the other roasts that you might be working with, it has all of these little parts where it's like weirdly connected. So it's kind of hard to flip this one. But this is where tongs come in handy. Now, see, this is what we were looking for. We like this nice dark stuff here. That really gives a roast a good flavor. Now try to get it as much contact as possible in your pan, and then you're just going to do it all over again. All right, so we've been searing for about 10 minutes, which is probably a little bit more than we needed to, but I was having trouble adjusting the camera, so you got to wait for it, which means we've got a really good sear on here. Let's go ahead and flip it over and I'll show you what I mean. Let's see, we've got lots of that nice dark stuff. That translates into flavor in the pot. Now, let's talk about a few things here with this roast. Now, this roast in particular is very thin, as you can see. You can see that it's very thin. If it was not, if it was a roast with more surface area on the sides, I would be making sure that I was searing on all sides. I would be standing it up on its edges and getting that nice sear everywhere. Because this is so thin, I usually don't. There are times that I will, the side is wide enough that I will go ahead and stand it up and do that. But generally speaking, these arm roasts are thin enough that I just don't bother. Now we'll go ahead and get it into the Instant Pot. Now, the trivet went a little wonky, and that happens. But you see, I had the trivet in there. This is going to keep it up out of the water. You don't want to boil your roast, and that's what will happen if you keep it under the water in there. You're going to boil the roast, and you're not going to get the flavor or the texture that you want for the meat. So this is how I do it. I keep it up out of the water with the trivet. Now what we're going to do, all of these little bits, they're called fond. And we want to get those out of the pan because they are just tons of flavor, and we want to put that in there. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned, I have 2 cups of water in the bottom of there. You don't want to cook it dry either. I know it's kind of a little bit crazy to say not in the water, but in the water. You want more of a steam than a boil. So you do want to have liquid in the bottom of your pot, but just not so that it covers the roast. All right, so I don't know if you've ever deglazed a pan, so you're going to see me deglazing a pan. I put quite a bit in there. It really doesn't take that much to deglaze it, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, this is where the wooden spoon comes in handy, because you want to dig around all over for all those little hard spots. You want to help them come up off the bottom of the pan, because they just infuse this wine with wonderful flavor, and you like to have that, trust me, on your roast. So basically, as it starts to get in there and starts to boil, it'll start bubbling up, and the more it does that, the easier it is to scrape your little bits off. And it takes a little bit of time, and then after I get the little bits off, I let the wine cook down and thicken up a little bit, almost like a thin sauce. And then once it gets there, I pour it over the roast. So again, we're going to do that whole magic of the camera thing, and I'm going to stop this so you don't have to watch every minute of the process, and I'll bring you back once it's cooked down a little bit and you can see how that it takes a few minutes, so you know, be a little bit patient with it. But you see how all those little bits, I don't know, I actually don't know if you can see if all those little bits are coming out, but they are. All the little bits are coming off the bottom of the pan, and you'll see that when we put it into the Instant Pot, you'll see that this has almost cleaned the bottom of that pan. It looked so bad. It looked like everything was burnt on it, and it's really not. That is a wonderful, yummy, tasty thing that you want to put in on your roast. I was going to show you, while we're still cooking this down a bit, you can see how it has really reduced, and that's what we're aiming for. We're reducing this down to a thicker, tastier, more flavorful sauce-ish, I guess you could call it that. Anyway, but I also wanted to mention that if I were planning to put a bunch of spices, any kind of other spices other than salt and pepper on this roast, this is probably when I would do it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that this is a good time to turn on the saute feature on your Instant Pot. I know that kind of sounds weird, but it will shorten the time that it takes once you've put everything in there and you've sealed it up. It will shorten the time that it takes for it to come to pressure because you've already got some good heat going on there. So we're just about to get this out of this pan and into here, and as soon as that's done, we will lock it up and it'll be ready to go. All right, so now you can see that this has come to a point of thickness. It's almost like a syrup, like a saucy syrup. So this is when I use my spatula because I want to get as much of that out of the pan as I can. So I just pour it over the roast and then bring all that saucy goodness down in there. You don't want to lose any of that if you can help it, because it really helps the flavor of the roast. Now, like I said, I turned on the saute feature, so you'll see that it says it's already on. That just means it's heating up in there, which helps it to come to pressure faster once we get it all set and going. All right, so like I said in the opening, I have my meat seal in there. If you just have one seal, don't worry about different colors and all that stuff. You can just use that one seal. All right, we close it up. Make sure that you're in the locked and loaded position there. And to get from saute to the adjustment that we want, we actually have to shut it off. So you want to go off. You can either use the meat stew, or you can just use manual. Either way, you're going to get the same result. So I hit meat, what the heck, and I take this up. I have found that with a roast of that size, 72 to 75 minutes is perfect. So that's it. I just let that go, and it seals up and it cooks, and then I'll show you the results when we get done. Okie dokie artichoke, we have gone through our cooking cycle. I allowed it to do a natural release. Now sometimes if I'm in a hurry, if I'm making this later in the evening and I want to just get it done and get to bed, I will do a quick release. So that is a possibility. You can do that with a roast. You can quick release it. But this time I went ahead and let it do a natural release. Now the reason I'm bringing all this up is because sometimes if I doubt whether or not it's going to be completely done, and what I mean by done isn't like a right temperature, it's I'm looking for a particular tenderness of the roast. So when I open it, I play with it a little bit to make sure that I've got the tenderness that I'm looking for. If I don't, I will close it back up and cook it again for a few minutes. Usually, that's usually all it takes, but I will do a quick release if I have any doubt at all. And that way, I'll do a quick release, make it faster. Okay, nope, it's not quite done, and I zip it back up and off we go. This time, I'm pretty sure that it's done. That's usually enough time. Okay, now see, first of all, it fell off the bone, like literally. So that's a good sign. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get that bone out of the way. But you can see that, okay, okay, you can see I've got my tongs out again, and the whole purpose of having my tongs out is that's usually how I get it out of here. Now let me show you how crazy tender that is. Did you see that? I mean, it's fall apart tender. That is what I'm looking for. There's a, I think it's still there, a barbecue place in Phoenix that has a little slogan, "You don't need no teeth to eat this meat." That's what I'm going for with a roast. I want crazy tender. I love to have a nice flavorful beefy flavored roast, and this is just the best. It takes minimal effort. I know it looks like it takes a long time in that video, but once you kind of get in the swing of it and it's a habit, you'll see it doesn't really take that long. And even when you're doing the searing of the meat and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you walk away from that. So I mean, you just set it and just walk away. So it's not like it's labor intensive, like you have to stand right there and stir it and make sure, you know, it really is quite easy to get this level of tenderness every time. I mean, how crazy is that? All right, there you go.